Hello, this is our another episode of the Many Hats of Coco. This is Coco. I am Theo Czuk, and we are at the Tronson Art Gallery in Springfield. And today we're going to be happy to bring you Michele Thorp, a local artist, and she's going to share her artistic wisdom with us this evening. Right now, I'm going to walk over to the couch and welcome Michele Thorp. We're going to sit down and have a nice little conversation. And Michele, would you care to join me over here? So we're at the Tronson Art Gallery, and Michele's hanging here right now, and she'll be hanging here through
April.
Through April, and this is 2017. In case this is repeated in 2025. And I'm happy to have you. And you know, today was the first time I really had a chance to explore what you did, and it's breathtaking. It's really wonderful. It's really wonderful. You had a couple interesting. What I do is I send out an email and I ask people to prompt me if you have something you want to cover. She had a very interesting thing to say. She's not long-winded about talking about art, but you might want to include something about fractured images in art. And I'm kind of curious of what you mean as an artist by fractured images.
Well, fractured imaging was done back in the early days when Cubism was the big rage. Fracturing the image was one way they could get away from the traditional perspective. Fracturing can be done in many, many different ways, and the style I'm using is a very minor version of it. And it can be done from different standpoints. You can fracture like you're putting an entire new design on top of an existing composition, or you can go into the imagery like a building and do the fracturing based on the lines and shapes that are within the image. There are many other ways, but those are the two that you will see in this particular exhibit of mine.
Very nice, very nice. So the Cubism, going back to the early 20s with Picasso and Braque,
right.
Breaking down images. I get it now. How'd you get into your art?
I grew up in a family of artsy, craftsy people. My mother both parents were teachers. My mother had arts and crafts going on. And of course, my childhood was back in the days before television. I was in high school, we finally got a TV, but we, four sisters, were all involved in all kinds of arts and crafts our entire childhood and growing up years. I had really liked it immensely, so when I went to college, I majored in art education. Art education, you're considered the jack of all trades and the master of nothing, but you've got a little training and everything. But I liked the painting so much that I continued with the two-dimensional work on my own. I did teach in the public schools for a short time as an arts and crafts teacher in Springfield and Eugene. And then I went on to just teaching painting classes to adults through various galleries and art centers and so on.
So you knew at a young age that art was something that you wanted to pursue?
Oh, very much so, and whether it was a lifetime career or just a fun hobby, I knew I would be involved in it. The whole family, all my sisters and I have been involved in arts, crafts, one way or another.
Mm-hmm. And I see that watercolor is your main focus, is that correct?
Yes.
Have you explored other mediums?
Oh yes, and I do some mixed media. There are a few ink, India ink and mixed media in this show also. That's all exploration. It's all fun to try this, try that. I love the challenges.
Is there something differently that you do now that you didn't do early in your career?
Yes, early in my career I did not work with figures, and the reason goes back to my childhood. One of my sisters and I used to set up the ironing board with a piece of cardboard on it, and then we would use butcher paper. Back in those days did not have the wax on one side, so we could use big pieces of butcher board and butcher paper, and the two of us could stand there at the ironing board and do paintings together. And I did the backgrounds and the foregrounds, and my sister Karen did all the figures. So I never was really into figures particularly. Even as an adult, my self-confidence was with the backgrounds and the foregrounds. And it was about, I'd say a dozen years ago, I had been out of painting for a while, and I decided to go back into it, and I was looking at where was I weak, or where had I not explored. So there were about 3 areas that I chose to really focus on, and figures was one of those. And I just happen to have 8 grandchildren, so it makes it very possible to have models that are basically free. I don't have to pay for them. So I have thoroughly enjoyed working with the figures now.
Beyond the figures, I noticed that a couple works, one you're going to talk about, have a very nice character in the face, besides just a figure. It's the character in the face that you're drawing out. We'll get you to talk about this. You want to talk about that? Is that any different from the figure, the general figure?
Well, always I'm looking for the value study, and in art we're talking about value that does not refer to money. It refers to the degree of lightness and darkness. You go from white to black. And when we do value studies, we have white to black with a bunch of grays in between. So the contrasts are always very important to me. And this is an example where the light hits the face on one side and you have darkness on the other. So this drew me in from the photographs that I had taken of this particular child and scene.
Very nice. You mentioned your sister Karen, that you would stand at the ironing board together. Is there someone in your life, maybe Karen, that you credit as an inspiration or advocate? Or
Yes, my mother was a teacher. Both my parents were, but Mom was very involved in arts and crafts. And I feel that my really strong interest in composition is from my mother. She taught everything from kindergarten through phys ed and history and junior college level, but her last 15 years of her teaching career, she was the art teacher at Thurston High School in Springfield. She's very strong on composition. Her particular talents were more in the 3-dimensional. She did wonderful sculpture back in the day when there was macrame going on, and we have some wonderful wood sculptures of Mother's. Her name was Margaret Wingard, and there are some people who might even remember her teaching at Thurston. She was my main influence in the art.
Nice, nice. Influence and inspiration? Is there inspiration outside of
Oh, absolutely.
family?
Everything I see or hear or do in a daily life can inspire ideas. I feel like I'm on the right track when I find myself saying to me, I wonder what would happen if. That's when the creative juices are going and the challenge is there, and that's when I set my goals and I got to try this.
Yeah, no, boy, I can relate to that. Where and when do you do your best work? When are you comfortable working, and what's your environment like?
Well, my environment is a studio, which is one room in the house that has at various times been a bedroom, but it is basically the biggest mess God's ever seen, and I float from one painting or activity in art to another, and I have my little piles. I am able to shut the door so nobody can see the mess, and that is wonderful to go in and wallow in my art supplies.
And do you have a messy studio?
Very messy studio.
I like to hear that. Somehow that makes me feel good.
Theo, it seems we have a question from Coco.
Okay, Coco.
So one of the questions is, who is the young girl in the painting behind you?
This is one of my granddaughters, Ryden. She lives in Portland. The hat she is wearing is one of several tea party hats that we keep in a box. My grandchildren, starting with the two oldest, were twin boys at the age of 4, decided we needed to have tea parties. So we have ever since then, they're in high school now, all of the other cousins have always had tea parties at our house, and we have this supply of hats and ties and oddball things to wear at the tea party. They put on their grown-up fakey voices and the fun clothes, and we use the good china and the silver pot, and I can assure you the boys are every bit as much into this as the girls, as long as there's lots of food to eat.
Very nice.
So another question is, do you use a lot of masking to keep your whites?
I use some masking. I wouldn't say a lot, but I do use some, and you can also lift, in watercolor, you can lift some of the color out to lighten an area, and you can also scrape with a point of a knife.
That was a good question, Coco. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What do you feel is the most difficult and or the easiest part of the life as an artist?
Oh my.
That's a big question. I
Balancing all one to other's activities so that you have concentrated time to spend on the art, because I do not paint every day. I have a large family and I have lots of friends and other interests, but trying to get that balance in there is probably the most difficult part.
And then once you do have some time to get to the art, what is the most difficult?
Well, if I plan it right, and planning means that I'm pulling the resource materials together. I work a lot from photographs. I take lots of photographs. Like if I'm going to do, say, a swan, I want different directions, different angles. I want close-ups of the feet so that I have the information there. So getting all of that together and then getting the compositions designed before I ever go in and do any painting. So there's lots of pre-planning for me. I best utilize my time that way.
That does make sense. That works for me too. Have you found the community supportive of your art?
Oh, very supportive.
Yeah, certainly your family is. I'm just
Sure.
Yeah. And you, the community, you consider the greater Eugene area?
Eugene, Springfield. Sure.
This is a fun question always. What frustrations do you have as an artist?
Of that I don't do better. There's always a goal, and nothing ever comes out quite the way you'd sort of planned it in your head, but you have to be free to go with the flow. If the painting's going this direction and you were headed there, you better stop and go with the painting.
Yeah.
Sometimes they kind of paint themselves.
Yeah. I can just tell you ahead of time that that's what authors are going to say too. Sometimes a character will run away.
The creative process.
Yeah. And it's kind of fun to let that happen.
It is.
You get to follow.
That's true.
So it's kind of fun. What do you feel has been your greatest accomplishment as an artist?
Staying with it. Just continuing, because a lot of people give up after a while.
Yeah.
Life takes over.
Yeah. Well, is it a release? I mean, is there a reason you stayed with it?
Oh, well, people say, why do you climb mountains? And people say, because they're there. Well, how could you not be creating something?
I'm with you. Authors have writer's blocks. Is there an artist block? Do you ever have hit a wall?
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Well, and I have noticed that when you're really in the flow and you're doing lots of creating, there isn't enough time to do everything that your ideas keep coming up with. But if you've been out of it for a while, I can't think of a thing to paint. Haven't been with it. So it has its own momentum. And so those blocks would be when I just can't think of something, this doesn't interest me, what could stir me up. So there are blocks.
Nice. That begs the question, do you have multiple pieces going at once?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's one reason I have such a messy studio. I have 2 watercolor places and I've got 2 oil places, so I can kind of move from one to another.
Yeah.
And that also keeps me stimulated. I get bored easily, and that's one reason you see such a variety in here today. I don't just paint one thing.
Yeah.
I have to keep me entertained.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. What's the most you've ever had going at one time?
Oh my goodness. My husband would
that
probably
many?
say 35 or something.
Really? How big is your studio?
It's just a regular bedroom size studio, but stuff is kind of stacked up.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I may be doing drawing in the evening, while I watch or listen to television. I may be pulling photographs together for another one. I may have 3 started up there. I may pull something out that I had not finished 6 months earlier and finish it. It's just constantly
So
working.
they'll be taking turns on your
Yes.
on your easel,
Right.
rotating in. I see. How do you market your art?
Poorly. I'm not.
Well, we're going to rectify that right now.
That's not my strength.
Yeah. You know what I'd like to do real quick right now, as long as we're talking about that, if you have a website, I'd like you to share it. So people can find you where?
If you put into your computer Michele Thorp Fine Art America, there's a whole page there with a number of my works on it.
That's spelled MICHELETHORP.
Correct. And be sure you spell it correctly, because I have discovered that there are other Michele Thorps in the computer that turn out to be porn queens. So
Which could be something quite different.
right.
Do you have any, once again, this show is at the Tronson Gallery in Springfield presently. Do you have anything else coming up? that
Not
you'd like
at the
to share?
moment. Everything
Yeah.
in here has been done in the last 2 years. And so now my goal, which I actually was working on yesterday, is deciding what I'm going to now, the next group of paintings that I'll be working on.
Oh.
My next group of goals.
Okay.
What's that, Coco? You have another question?
Speak up, Coco.
Do you mat and frame your own work?
Yes, I do.
And do you like doing any negative painting?
Negative painting in watercolor is one of the most delightfully fun parts of painting. And what she's referring to is where you're not painting the image, but the space around it. And for example, if you take a bunch of some grass, and you would have certain blades, but would you go in and you paint those behind certain blades? Negative painting is very, very much a technique in all painting.
So would an example be the swan behind you?
Sure. Yeah, there's some in there.
Would there be a better example around the gallery today?
Okay, well, in here, there is some negative painting going on, because there are some pieces of this that are on top, and there are some lighter blue ones back in there. So I would go in with a color, and in order to bring one out, I would paint darker behind it, and it makes it stand out more. So that's what they're talking about with negative painting.
And what gauge of watercolor paper do you use?
I love to use 300 pound.
Why is that?
Because it's so heavy and thick that I don't have to tape it all down and do all that messing with it. The one drawback to it is that it's very thick, so if I want to get my drawing on it, I have to put it on a light box in order to get the light through so I can get my sketching on it. But I love 300 pound paper.
Other than painting, do you have any other crafts that you consider you do as well?
Well, I would say I do as well as them at the painting, but I have taken classes in jewelry, which I love to do. I also do basket coiling, which is another little family thing that we have enjoyed. And I have, over the years, done quite a number of paper dolls that have been used by collectors.
Wow, interesting, thank you.
We're going to have to get Coco, Coco to sit here with me. Yeah, those are great questions. Does anybody else? I mean, yeah, Rod, speak up.
Are your other granddaughters jealous of that painting?
All of my grandchildren have been done in painting, so
Okay.
they, and their parents have them on the walls.
Beautiful job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Michele, it's been just wonderful having you here today.
Thank you so much. I've
Thanks for
enjoyed
coming.
it.
That's great. So this one's for the children. Mama Miss America. Mama, Mama Miss America, where has your family gone? I've been waiting by your cities now. I've been waiting in this fog. And I understand you're older now with no fire in your eye. But Mama, Miss America, don't let the children see you cry. Mama, I've swum in all your waters now, from sea to shining sea, and I've come to know the undertow that's drowning all our dreams. And it's so damn hard to think of you and your long lost virgin pride. But Mama, Miss America, don't let the children see you cry. Mama, from purple mountains' majesty to amber waves of gray, I wanted so to raise your flag, but it always looked like rain. And I want to stand behind you now, and God knows that I've tried. But Mama, Miss America, don't let the children see you cry. Mama, and Mama, Miss America, it's so sad what we've wrought, but I want to be your hero, your silver patriot. And I want so much to comfort you and hold your head up high. But Mama, Miss America, don't let the children see ya. Mama, Miss America, don't let the children see ya. Mama, Miss America, don't let the children see ya cry. Mama.
This is a Tuscan farm, and it is in the fractured image style. I actually based it on photographs that I took when my husband and I were traveling in Italy. We spent a full month in Florence, and that was a class. We were in a class to learn about the culture and pretend to speak the language. And I was not real thrilled with the language part of it because I'm not very good in foreign languages. But I absolutely love the architecture and the beautiful colors in the countryside. So this was based on some of the photographs that I took over in Italy. But we had a great time, particularly when the group went out to visit various sites. Of course, I like the countryside anyway, so that was thrilling. Back about 35, 40 years ago, my mother and I both worked in fractured images, just exploring various styles of art. She did them more in watercolors, and I did them only in oils at that time. But when I came back into fractured images about 2-3 years ago, I decided I wanted to figure out how to do them in watercolors also. It's more difficult in watercolor. You have some limitations that you don't in oil. But I thoroughly enjoy the challenge of trying to pull this together. Basically, a fractured image, you're putting a composition on top of another composition. And that's part of the challenge. And now that I have this show completed, I am planning my new goals. I want to explore some other aspects of fracturing images because it is a challenge. It's fun. Watercolor, oils you can scrape off and do over, but watercolors are a little more, it's there, it stains the paper. You can do a lot with watercolor that people don't realize, but at some point you have to kind of quit or you're going to ruin the paper. This is a fractured image in watercolor, and it is based on the various shapes of the bird itself. I love to paint birds.
That's
Watercolor
beautiful.
is tremendously fun to work with, and I love to do splatter and everything. And areas like this are done by putting salt into the wet wash, and you get that textural effect. Watercolor is tremendously fun. And I probably do more in watercolor than I do in oil, but I do enjoy the oils too.